the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will meet with the US, French and German leaders in Berlin on Saturday to discuss the deteriorating situation and work on a diplomatic solution. But tonight, it's of course difficult to see what that diplomatic path might look like. The spokesperson for the Israeli embassy here in the UK, Orly Goldschmidt, I'm pleased to say, joins us now. Good to have you here on the programme today. Firstly, can you confirm the breaking news that we've had tonight, that Israel has killed the replacement leader of Hezbollah, Hashem Safieddine?
Well, that's what the Prime Minister has announced a few hours ago, so I believe it is true. Yeah.
We've been hearing from Deborah Haynes, our correspondent, who's in Jerusalem tonight, who was saying that the world is still, I guess, waiting to see how Israel is going to respond to the missile strikes that we saw from Iran. That's the question so many of us will be asking. Can you shed any light on where the Israeli government's head's at right now?
As you know, Iran has been firing about almost 500 rockets and missiles since April, between April and the latest attack on Israel. And they're using their proxies to destabilize us, destabilize the Middle East. So Israel will have to respond, and I understand that the response is going to be a strong one, but I can't tell you when and how, and that's up to the government to decide. It's not something that I will know of before, of course, but the Iranian regime needs to understand that they cannot keep on threatening us and sending ballistic missiles at Israeli populations with the intent to kill. That's not something that any government would allow without any response.
A strong response then, that's how you would describe it?
That's how I understand things will happen. That's what our Prime Minister has said, and that's what other leaders have said. So yes, a strong response. We have to remember the Iranian regime is at the head of that destabilization that we can see at the moment. They are using Hezbollah. Hezbollah is their proxy in Hamas. And not only them, also the Houthis, Syrian militias and Iraqi militias. And they're actually not only threatening the Middle East, they're also helping with the war against Ukraine. And we have heard today from the head of MI5 that they are also operating, or at least trying to operate on UK soil. We know of a journalist that was stabbed recently by Iranians. So we are at the forefront of that war against the Iranian regime, but they're not threatening only Israel.
You mentioned that the comments by the head of MI5. I mean, do you think the West has been a bit asleep at the wheel, I guess, when it comes to Iran?
But what I mean is that we understand that when the Iranian regime calls for the destruction of Israel and the destruction of America, and they murder women in the streets for not covering their hair, we don't share the same values, you and me and that regime. I think the UK understands that we're facing the same threat and we need to address them.
Just kind of thinking about the strong response that you're talking about, and I just want to ask you something that I've been kind of wrestling with, I guess. Do you think that Israel has walked into a trap? That, that the horrors of October the 7th were committed to provoke a reaction by Israel, and that this is exactly what Hamas wants you to do, to respond in this very, very strong military way that then, I guess, will weaken your relationships with some allies, that will turn some people in the region and also around the world against you, that you're doing exactly what Hamas wants?
Well, I think for sure Hamas wants to weaken us. If they didn't want to, they wouldn't have sent over 3,000 terrorists to butcher Israelis on the 7th of October. And actually, we are today on the 8th of October, which is exactly a year since Hezbollah decided to join Hamas. And, they saw an opportunity to kill Jews, so they joined. And since then, they have fired over 10,000 rockets at Israel. I think Israel is there trying to survive. Israel wants to live in peace with its neighbors. That's something that we all know. And we have been trying to go through the diplomatic route time and again. As you know, we have asked the Hezbollah to implement the 1701 UN Security Council resolution.
You say that Israel wants to survive, right? And I think there'll be lots of allies of Israel who totally get that. But I guess the question is, are you walking into a trap and making that less likely? You've seen the response from the UK with a partial arms embargo. You've seen comments from President Macron. Your allies are worried, they're nervous by the deaths that we've seen. And there'll be lots of people around the world who will be turning against Israel because of what they've seen.
I'm sure you'd understand. It's not like we have that choice. It's very difficult to talk diplomacy with a regime that calls for the destruction of our own people. And still, we're trying to go through the diplomatic route. But at the end of the day, we will have to do what's best for us to make sure that we can live in peace, to make sure that our 60,000 plus residents can go back to their houses, to make sure that our families don't have to run to a shelter every 10 minutes. You know, when Iran launched their ballistic missiles toward Israel, it was spread out. It was everywhere. It wasn't only in one place in the south of Israel. It was really everywhere. Our families had 12 minutes to run to shelters because within 12 minutes, the missile can explode and create a huge catastrophe. So when you see that, you understand that these are not organizations that we can talk with, and we have to defend ourselves. I'm sure you would expect from the UK government, if there was even one missile that were falling in the middle of London, to respond and not to let that aggression unanswered.
Can I talk to you a little bit about a girl who died in Gaza, Hind Rajab? You'll know her, right?
Yeah.
She's a 5-year-old girl. And she was killed in a car trying to escape Gaza, and she was on the phone to emergency services for 3 hours. One of the things that she was saying at the time was, "I'm so scared, please come." But then she was killed, and 2 paramedics were also killed trying to reach her. You know the story, I'm sure that you'll be as upset,
tragedy.
Heartbroken.
I can tell you that no Israelis feel any joy when they see reports about Palestinians killed in Gaza. You want me to...
Yeah, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because our reporter Stuart Ramsey has been looking into this and speaking to the family as well. And at the time, the RDF has said that its forces were not present near the vehicle or within the firing range. But Stuart's looked at a press release that was published 12 days after the attack that said over the last 2 weeks, the RDF did conduct raids on terror targets in the same neighbourhood. Now, I understand that the IDF has passed on this case to the General Staff, to a unit that investigates unusual events during the war. I mean, is that an acknowledgement that this is an unusual event, that you're trying to work out what happened and whether the IDF may have been responsible for that?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that the IDF has conducted an investigation and that they were not present at that moment. They didn't.
Even though they were in the area.
They were in the area, like
time.
Hamas was in the area as well. Hamas is constantly in those areas. The IDF didn't conduct any operation at that time. And I believe the IDF, when they conduct investigations, I'm sure you do too, and if they had a suspicion or a doubt, they would have said that. But it was apparently not the IDF that time.
But our understanding is that there is an active further investigation underway, is that right?
My understanding is that they have already checked and that they were not doing any activities during that specific moment in that area.
How would you describe, just finally, how would you describe the support for Israel of Keir Starmer and David Lammy?
Well, you know, yesterday, 2 days ago, there was a big vigil for the 7th of October with a lot of support from the British people to Israel. And yesterday and today as well, we had a book of condolences that many people signed, including Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner and the Foreign Secretary. And we feel that the Prime Minister, the government, is very supportive of Israel's right to defend itself. They have met with families of victims of the 7th of October. The Prime Minister has met himself with Mandy Damari, who's Emily Damari's mother, who's a British hostage still held as a hostage in Gaza. And
they also put in the partial arms embargo there, right? They're unhappy.
Yeah,
they think you're overstepping.
I mean, we have said that also clearly, that we felt disappointed that our allies decided to put a partial arms embargo in times of war, especially because we are fighting the same enemies.
They say it's because they can't be confident that they weren't not used to commit war crimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the British position. We believe that we are working in compliance with the international law, and that we're taking all the steps in order to make sure that we are operating along the international law, international warfare.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you very much for being on
Thank
the
you.
programme today. Thank you.